Somos a 3tentos, uma empresa que está na vanguarda.
We are 3tentos, the avant-garde business. Joining together, research and
Com a
development
perseverança de quem produz
along
e
with
com o
digital
mesmo
platforms,
ímpeto da
we
agricultura
built,
brasileira,
along with
a
farmers,
3tentos
one way to
surge
plan
em
their
1995,
season, so as to
com a
optimize
visão de
their
ser
yields.
uma empresa de
3tentos
soluções para o
network
agricultor.
optimizes soybeans, corn,
Nós
and
temos
wheat,
hoje
the
uma
whole
empresa
season
preparada,
life cycle,
pronta,
from
temos
planting to
pessoas
harvest. We have these
absolutamente
solutions
engajadas,
and a
comprometidas.
complete
Nós
ecosystem
estamos
for
em
the
toda a
Brazilian
cadeia do
agribusiness.
agronegócio,
Through
desde o
consultancy,
planejamento de uma
services,
lavoura junto com o
development,
produtor,
digital
até um
services,
produto que está
input,
chegando na
logistics,
indústria e
credit,
dali para a
and
mesa das
relationship.
pessoas.
This ecosystem we built
Insumos,
is built
grãos
to
e
and
indústria
with those
formam a
who we
base do
appreciate
nosso
most,
negócio,
our
fortalecem
employees
as nossas
and
ofertas.
customers.
Possuindo
3tentos.
47 lojas no Rio Grande do
Always
Sul
at your
e
side.
3 no Mato Grosso, totalizando 50 lojas. 2 parques industriais no Rio Grande do Sul e um parque
good
industrial
afternoon,
no Mato
everyone.
Grosso. Um centro
Good
de
afternoon.
pesquisa no Rio Grande do Sul e um
A warm
centro de
welcome to
pesquisa no
our
Mato
3tentos
Grosso.
Day
2
2023.
unidades
It's
de
an honor to
beneficiamento
welcome
de
you to our
sementes,
home in
uma
our office
misturadora de
center in Sinop,
fertilizantes.
in the state of Mato
Nossa
Grosso.
oferta
We also
tem
want
início
to
por meio da
welcome those who are
consultoria
watching
técnica,
us online in our
abastecida por
YouTube
uma área
channel, those who
interna de
could
pesquisa,
unfortunately not be here
desenvolvimento
with
e
us in
inovação.
person. This event was put together so that we can provide you a unique experience, so you can get to know our company and discover the way we have evolved in the state of Mato Grosso since 2021. To talk about today's agenda and give you more information on our program, I invite our manager of IR, Eduardo Morpe.
Olá, pessoal. Boa tarde.
Hello, everyone. Good
Vocês que
afternoon.
estão aqui com a gente, com o pessoal que
Good
está nos
afternoon to
acompanhando
those
aí pelo
who are
YouTube.
watching us in person and
É um
online
prazer aí
in our
estar
YouTube
recebendo
channel.
vocês
It
aqui em
is
Mato
a
Grosso,
great
nesse
pleasure to
evento,
welcome you
que
to
é o
Mato Grosso.
3tentos Day 2023.
Our event, 3tentos Day
Vamos seguir aqui com uma
2023, is going to be
agenda,
very
começando
special. So
com
let's
o
begin
nosso
with our
CEO,
agenda.
Luiz Osório do Moncel,
We'll
e o João
begin
Marcelo,
with our
COO,
CEO
dando
and our
abertura a esse
COO
evento,
initial
que é
remarks
super importante para a
that will
companhia aqui no
officially
Mato Grosso.
open this event, which is
Logo
quite
na
important
sequência,
for
vamos
us
ter
in the
o
state of
Eduardo
Mato Grosso.
Menezes,
After
nosso
that, we're going to
diretor
hear from Eduardo
comercial, que vai
Menezes,
estar
our
falando para
sales
nós aqui pouco
director,
sobre essa
who will be giving
execução
us more
bem-sucedida
information
aí
on
nos últimos anos
our
da companhia.
successful journey over the
Vamos ter
past years.
intervalo aqui, né, para
After
todos que
that,
estão aqui
we're
com a
going to
gente,
have a quick break.
de 20 minutos, né, e na sequência a gente
We'll
começa
break
aí
for 20
painel
minutes,
com
and after
o
that,
nosso
we'll
diretor
begin
de
our
marketing,
panel
né,
with our
sendo
marketing
moderador aqui,
director,
recebendo
who will
o
be
nosso
moderating
diretor de
this
insumos,
discussion
o
along with our
Leone,
input
com o Luiz
director, Mr.
Augusto,
Orleone,
nosso diretor de
and Luis
commodities,
Augusto,
para
our
falar
commodities
dos
director.
temas aí mais
They'll be giving
ligados
us
às áreas de
information
insumos,
on
grãos e
input,
indústria, né. A gente também vai
grains,
comentar aqui
and
pouco,
market
vai ter
information.
painel, uma sequência de apresentação
After
com
that,
o
we're
Luiz
going to
Pedro,
have
né, diretor
other
de serviços
presentations
financeiros,
by Luis
e
Pedro,
o
our
Cristiano
financial
Costa,
director,
né, falando
and
da
Cristiano
gestão,
Costa,
de
who'll be talking
capital aí da
about
companhia, e
capital
o
management in the
Luiz
company.
Osório e o João Marcelo
And after
retornam
that,
aqui
Luis
para a parte
Osorio
final da
and João
apresentação,
Marcelo
em falar pouco das expectativas futuras da
will come back
companhia,
to our stage to
né, e a
talk
visão
about
de
the
longo
company's
prazo.
structure
E
and
a
our
gente inicia aí a
long-term
sessão de perguntas
perspectives.
e respostas com
After
vocês,
that,
né.
we'll begin
A
our
gente tem
Q&A
uma
session.
agenda também amanhã, né, para uma visita da nossa
Tomorrow,
indústria,
we're going to
mais
pay a
recentemente
visit
foi
to
concluída
our
em junho,
facilities. The
e
plant has
isso
been
foi um
concluded
marco
in
super
July,
importante para a companhia nessa
and
nova
this was a
fase.
very
A
important
gente vai
milestone for the
justamente conhecer
company.
ela amanhã
So we're
e
all going
retornando,
to
enfim,
visit our
encerrando o
facilities,
evento, tá bom?
come back
Então
to the
agora eu
room,
chamo
and then
aqui
wrap up the event.
o Luiz Osório
With
do
that,
Moncel
I'd like to
e
invite
o João
Luis
Marcelo aí
Osorio,
para
Moncel,
abertura
and
ao
João
evento.
Marcelo for their
Obrigado,
opening
Eduardo.
remarks. Thank you very much.
Obrigado, Mato. Obrigado, Mato. Boa tarde,
Thank you,
pessoal.
Mato. Good afternoon, everyone.
Sem dúvida nenhuma, aí uma honra, prazer estar recebendo vocês aqui.
This is a true honor
pessoalmente,
and a
depois de
pleasure
mim.
for me. It's great
A
to
gente
welcome
agradece
you here
muito, a
in
gente sabe
person.
muito
Thank you
bem
very
aqui,
much for
vive essa
joining us.
experiência de que nem sempre é tão fácil chegar aqui no
We know that
interior
it's
do Mato
not that
Grosso.
easy to
Então,
come
sem dúvida nenhuma, que
to
para nós
the state of Mato
grande
Grosso.
prazer e uma honra muito grande mesmo, como eu falei.
So again, it is a
poder contar
pleasure
com vocês aqui,
and
poder
an honor
mostrar
to
um
have you
pouco do
all
trabalho que
here
foi
with
feito
us
pela
in person,
3tentos
so we can
nesses
show a
últimos
bit of
anos,
what has been
e
done by
poder
us
compartilhar,
at
responder
3tentos
responder
over the past
os
years.
questionamentos, enfim, interagir
We're also
com
here
todos vocês
to
que são tão
address your
importantes para nós.
questions
nessa
and
jornada aí
answer your
nossa
questions,
de
since
mercado de
you're very
capitais, de
important
companhia
to
aberta.
us as we move
Também
forward
saudar o pessoal que
as
está nos
a public
acompanhando
listed
online, né?
company.
Então,
Greetings to
realmente, a gente
those of
também
you who are
quer
watching us
fazer
online.
evento aqui dinâmico, trazer as informações,
This is
para
going
que
to be
também
quite a
vocês
dynamic
possam
event,
nos acompanhar e ter, digamos, as melhores informações possíveis aqui da 3tentos,
and
dessa
we want to make
jornada,
sure
dessa
you
caminhada que a
also
gente
have
fez,
access
não só aqui no
to
Mato
the
Grosso,
most
mas na
up-to-date
companhia como um todo
information
no Mato Grosso
of
e no
our
Rio Grande do Sul.
company, both for the
Boa tarde,
states of Mato
pessoal.
Grosso and Rio Grande do Sul.
Reforçando o
Good
que o João
afternoon,
Marcelo falou
everyone.
aqui, para
Just
nós
wanted to
é uma
underpin
alegria
what was said
muito
by
grande
João Marcelo. It is a great
na
joy for
3tentos,
us to
Mato
welcome you
Grosso, aqui na
to
3tentos
3tentos Mato Grosso in the
Nós
city of Sinop.
gostaríamos e queremos, com vocês e com o pessoal que nos acompanha também online, proporcionar evento
For those who are here in
descontraído,
person
bem
and for
tranquilo,
those of you who are
que a gente
attending the
possa,
session online,
assim, interagir de
just wanted to say that this is going to be quite an interactive,
possa
dynamic
chegar aqui,
event.
estar vivendo talvez a primeira chuva
We want this to be
do
a
Mato
fruitful
Grosso,
debate.
né, já iniciando o novo ciclo de plantio que
With the
vai começar
rainfall,
daqui a alguns
we're beginning
dias.
a new
Nós
cycle
não
in
tem
a few
como não
days.
reforçar o marco
But before
que é
that
esse momento
happens,
pra
we
nós.
wanted to, again,
Com alguns aqui eu
underpin
já falei,
how
hoje é o
important a
primeiro
milestone
dia
this is for us.
dessa loja aqui, 3tentos Sinop, literalmente.
This is the first day
Nós
we have
chegamos
in
aqui no
our
sábado,
Sinop store.
fizemos a preparação
We got
final.
here on
Hoje
Saturday.
todo o time está ali embaixo,
We got
preparado,
everything
já
ready and the
conectando
team
com clientes e trabalhando. Então,
is
primeiro
already
dia,
connecting
nada
with
melhor
their
do que receber
customers.
vocês
So this is the
aqui, é
very
uma
first
honra
day
pra
of our
nós.
operations,
E o
and this is the
Walter já
best way
passou
to kick
também a
things off
programação
with you.
dos próximos dias.
You
Esse
heard about
slide
the
que tá
agenda,
aqui inicial,
and on this next slide,
nós reforçamos o quão importante
the main
é
message
para
is that for 3tentos,
essa
it
integração
is
dos negócios
crucial to integrate our
que a
businesses.
gente conseguiu fazer. Então, insumos, grãos e
That is something we accomplished to do.
3tentos
Input,
é muito
grains,
natural que
and
isso
the
aconteça.
market. Integrating these three elements comes naturally for us at
Muita
3tentos.
sinergia com o produtor, muita interação com
We
ele.
work in synergy with farmers,
Tem a convicção que acontece no Rio Grande do Sul.
and we're sure that that happens both in the state of Rio Grande do Sul. We got 90% of the acreage covered by soybeans, wheat, and rice, and in Mato Grosso, we're now taking our first steps, opening our very first store that was built by us. We do have other stores in other municipalities, though. Our product is all about crop management. That is to say that 3tentos, in their research centers in Rio Grande do Sul and in the new Mato Grosso Research Center, which you're going to know tomorrow, we want to make sure farmers are successful. We want to deliver different products with different management practices, with technology that has been validated and proven in the fields. That is only possible because of the dedication of our committed team, both in the states of Rio Grande do Sul and Mato Grosso. 3tentos is amongst the largest retailers in Brazil.
Mas nós já somos, estamos entre os maiores varejistas de insumos do país.
We'll give you more details on that in a few minutes. We're also expanding. Tomorrow, you're going to visit our plant. It's going to be the largest plant we hold at 3tentos. And we've got high hopes. We should keep on growing. Now let's go back to 1995. Back in the day, 3tentos was a seed producer. We sold input and grains. Marcelo and I were actually debating what we were going to say on this topic before the event, and we remembered the first barters. How many kilograms of soybeans per kilogram of seed we would sell. We have always appreciated research. We used to pay royalties even before cultivars were protected. This is part of our culture. We really appreciate technology, and we want to provide this technology to growers. The industry in 2013 was another milestone. When we came to Mato Grosso in September 2021, that was also a very important landmark for our story. And of course, when we went public, that was also a major milestone for us. We have new investors. Both new and old investors bring about great responsibility for us. In 2023, in the first half of this year, as we look at our revenue breakdown, we've got input, grains, and industry. The industry here is giving us great revenue support, while other pillars may or may not do that well because of price variations, because of climate issues. We see what happens in this ecosystem and how important this revenue is. Now, we know the fields. We're located in the Midwest, and we've been here for decades. We got family farms, and we've got great cultural identification. People from the South came to this region back in the 1970s. André Maggi is one of our main references. He was one of the pioneers. Nowadays, this city that used to be quite small in 1970 now counts on 250,000 people, 5 universities. The city's GDP is growing exponentially. The 163 road has been expanded and it's now really close to us. This is all about financial resources. And agribusiness has always been at the core of this revenue. That brings about new opportunities, new businesses, and new products. And of course, pasture conversion. If we're talking about 4 million hectares, or 5 maybe, without cutting down a single tree, that is to say that we preserve the environment and we're growing more food and more renewable energy. I think that's an important point. The market is growing in Brazil. Our production CAGR is above 5% a year. That's been so over the past 20 years. And the state of Mato Grosso has been quite important in this regard. If you look at data from the IMEA and SEMA, this is what we see. In Mato Grosso, 60% of our lands are absolutely preserved. We're talking about legal reserves, conservation units, and indigenous lands. Mato Grosso accounts for 13% of its acreage. That is to say 12 million hectares. So out of our state, 13% of our lands are used for food production. We've got 2 seasons a year. That's quite consolidated. And this is something that is not unique to the state of Mato Grosso. This is one of the main differentiators of Brazilian agribusiness as compared to other countries. In our country, we can have 2 seasons a year and we can be quite productive. Now we got 22 million hectares of pasture lands in the state of Mato Grosso. This is a great reserve, and that will allow us to grow in the future. As we've seen happen in the past years, these pasture lands will be transformed into arable land, so exponential growth, which is quite important. If you look back, Mato Grosso can be divided into 4 macro regions. The first region is BR-163. This is the macro region where we kickstarted our work in the state. That's where we started expanding. Then we got Parecis, southern Mato Grosso, and the Araguaia Valley. So BR-163 is the largest area with the greatest acreage, but the other regions are also very important. In these regions, especially in Parecis and the Araguaia Valley, as well as in the northern region of 163, we got many pastures that will be used as arable lands that will be crucial for our expansion in the state of Mato Grosso and in Brazil. Now, this is where we're located. This is the state map. Number 1 is Sinop, number 2, Vera, number 3, our Sorriso store. That's the main core of the 163 region, with the cities of Lucas, Sorriso, and Sinop, but we also focus on expansion lands. This is where we've been growing more recently, where agriculture has been taking up space from livestock, Matupá, Porto Floresta, and Alta Gaúchos. These lands will surely drive our growth moving forward. Of course, we should also consider the traditional axis of the BR-163 region. We should also consider the Vera industry and the new store in Nova Ubiratã, which is to the east of the 163 region, close to the Xingu Park. I was talking to Tiago, Mazo, and Freitas about this. What we're trying to do during this event is to look back the past 2 years. We're giving you information on the whole company. We're also touching on the state of Rio Grande do Sul, but since we are located in Mato Grosso, since this is the core, since this is the region that drives our growth, we want to focus on the state. We're talking about 7 stores during this period of time. Our potential market is 5 million hectares along the BR-163 region. We got more than 20 consultants working on this region, but many more are being hired so that we can have a better sales force in Matupá, Porto dos Gaúchos, Sinop, Alta Floresta. But we also have consultants being hired for Alta Ubiratã and Sorriso. These other regions that we're also expanding within this 5 million hectares I mentioned. 21% of our input revenue in the first half of this year stemmed from the state of Mato Grosso. So Mato Grosso is a true powerhouse in terms of ag production. We're talking about a state that in the 2023 season produced 44 million tons of soybeans and 51 million tons of corn. This state is larger than the whole country of Argentina production-wise. We have to be aware of that. João Marcelo and I would like to share this with you. Our team works hard and we put safety first. This is one of the main pillars of our values. We are fully aware that we should grow constantly. We know that we got quite a challenging CAGR, but the very foundation of our work is safety, research and development, as well as innovation. That is part of our work with the inputs and the technologies we bring to our growers. Now, with regards to grains, let me talk about corn. Why are we talking about corn? 160,000 tons have been negotiated already. And this is what attracts customers to us. Sometimes they have issues with stocks, and they know that we're ready to provide them with corn. We're selling corn as seed. Because of corn, we sold chemicals, fertilizers, and this is the way forward. So this combination is really important. Now, we know that we can build storage facilities, that we can preserve the grain. that we have export professionals that focus on selling this corn. I'm sure you saw Cargill on the way here. If you didn't see it, you may see them tomorrow as we go to our plant. They are one of our customers. We got great relationships with Cargill, and we are as competitive as any other player in the state of Mato Grosso. I mentioned Cargill because we got a close relationship with them. So we keep a close eye on that. We're mindful of those elements because we want to evolve together regardless of price cycles. In Chicago, it went up to $18 per bushel, then it dropped to $13 or $14 per bushel, but we're here doing our job nevertheless, trying to provide our growers with the best outcomes possible. Now, the plant going to visit tomorrow is the largest one we have. Leandro, our sales director, may tell you that this is the most modern plant we have in Brazil as of today. He's really proud of that plant, by the way. During the break, you'll be able to see earthwork that was done during the past 2 years so that we could make this plant possible with utmost quality. We persevere. We're opening up a new market in Mato Grosso. And we are as north as it gets along the BR-163 region. And we want to add value by delivering meal, by delivering this product to the local market, selling oil in the state of Mato Grosso. And we also want to add value whenever we have the opportunity of selling oil as renewable energy, as biodiesel. So again, we persevere at 3tentos. We got a dedicated working model, and we connect these 3 pillars. This is what makes us stronger day in, day out. We'll be giving you more information on our expansion later, but we're working with 2.6 tons soybeans. Now, we want everyone to be on the same page, and we want to give you clarity on what we do. So let me tell you about what is working and what hasn't been working. We're now gaining traction, and we can tell you that because of the interactions we have in the market with other players. After that, we're going to give you information on our challenges.
But one thing that has definitely made us stronger as we came to Mato Grosso was the ecosystem. And most importantly, the fact that we had our manufacturing operations being set up as we came to Mato Grosso. This adds a lot of consistency for us in the eyes of the client. They see us completely differently when it comes to our commitment to the market and the way we add value. And this is not, for example, an expansion by simply buying a store or buying a few trucks. Naturally, this is a possible way of doing that as well. But when we try to work by expanding to several different areas, bringing in a very specialized teams and investing just as we did in Vera to create this ecosystem, which was the building block of our company's growth here in the state of Mato Grosso, has provided us a way to access farmers in a very distinguished way. Yeah, even because in the beginning we talked to many of you broaching the topic of how difficult it would be to break into the state of Mato Grosso. Of course, this is a challenge, but we have always been very firm believers that we would come into the state with a very different model that offers absolutely distinguished possibilities. Yeah, another thing is the technological aspect. Not only Mato Grosso, but across Brazil, agriculture requires a lot of technology, new seeds, new fertilizers, new ways to manage crops, as was said in the beginning. And we have been focusing on delivering a technological package that will improve their production and improve their management. We also found room for that in the state of Mato Grosso. And I dare saying that there's room for that anywhere in the country. In the south, where the market is very more consolidated, there's still room to do that. And this opens up another window of opportunity to bring in any company that's focused on that. And that's the case with 3tentos. We'll be talking about PDI, our research and development program that has that DNA to add value to our farmers. Yeah, and this is not just saying that, oh, we have this package or we have this model. No, we're designing our solutions for 2,000, 50,000 hectares. We are discussing what the best solution for them is. Yeah, and bringing that solution in addition to other tools that we already offer. So manufacturing is a building block of our plan. The technological transfer is another important building block, and also storage and sales. So obviously this is nothing new to any of us in here, but the challenges the state of Mato Grosso faces in terms of logistics to grow production, just as you mentioned, with over 50 tons that are being harvested here in the state, and you'll see that there's no shortage of trucks on the road outside. You can just run the numbers. When we are in the harvest season, there will be even more. Now, all of that becomes a bottleneck in terms of development, but also offers a huge opportunity. So as 3tentos focuses on sales, storage, and offering convenience to farmers with these units that we've positioned closer to the faster growing areas or areas where distribution is going through, is very interesting. These are fast-growing areas without a comprehensive infrastructure or available infrastructure at the right level for farmers. And this creates a competitive advantage for any company that believes and becomes a pioneer in those areas. Now, another point that we'd like to stress, looking at our ag inputs, is the very favorable timing that we had here in Mato Grosso coming here in 2021. The ag inputs distribution system in Brazil at large has gone through deep transformation in the years of 2020 and 2021, and that has added some uncertainty to the market in Brazil in terms of portfolio transition or farmer transitions to company A or B. So this is an opportunity, and to some extent facilitates the entry of new players into the market, precisely into these more consolidated market, which is where we are. So this definitely was a distinguishing factor. So we point out 4 factors that show us what's working and why what we're doing is working. And we also show you some of the challenges, which aren't small at all. Of course, expanding or going into a market as large as what we have in the state of Mato Grosso is obviously not only just flowers. We need to work, and we need to work a lot. So we pointed out a few ones, and naturally, first and foremost, there's the issue of attracting new talent and culturing them into the state. Making that transition in the state is a huge challenge for us to have momentum in sales and establish that standard of transferring technology, which is part of the backbone of the company.
ele está ali como ponto forte, mas está também como desafio, obviamente, que é a questão
Another strength, but at the same time a
mesmo com todo o
challenge,
investimento que foi feito, mesmo com toda
is
ainda
distribution,
assim
because in
desafio.
spite of all the
Tem
investment
nosso
that's been made,
trabalho para
it's still a
aumentar volume,
challenge
para
because we need to work
agregar
to
regiões
increase
produtoras,
volume and to
e isso
add
aí
new
ele cria pressão sobre a
producing
logística,
areas, and that
principalmente no
has
aspecto de
adds a
eficiência
pressure
logística,
to logistics
diferencial que a
infrastructure,
gente
especially in terms
vai
of logistics
incessantemente
infrastructure,
buscar,
which
né?
is
Que é
something
ter
that we
uma
will be
logística
seeking
seja
non-stop.
competitiva, o mais
What we
competitiva
want is to have a
dentro
competitive
desse
logistics
cenário de
infrastructure,
aumento de produção,
one that's as
e ter
competitive as possible
multi-culturas como
within
tem, que a
this
gente trabalha já com soja,
multicultural
obviamente tem a
environment
indústria
here, where we have
como grande consumidor,
soybeans,
mas também se trabalha
of
a
which
exportação,
manufacturing is one
e
of the
parte
greatest
também de milho, que hoje também a gente trabalha com comercialização,
customers, and
principalmente
also
desses
corn, where we
soja e
work
milho, que é
with
o que a gente
sales,
faz,
especially
focando
with these
o
two
barter, a venda de
products,
insumos e o relacionamento
focusing
com o
on
produtor.
barter,
E
input
terceiro
sales,
que a gente
and
destaca
relationship
aqui
with
é o
farmers.
ritmo de acesso.
And a third factor
Que
is
é
the
isso aí.
pace of access to
Nós
farmers.
vamos para uma região nova.
So
Obviamente que a gente
we're
começa
going to a
trabalho de
new
integração
area.
lá, e
Naturally,
aí a
we'll
gente tem que
be
fazer
starting a
torcida
work,
nessa região, a gente tem que acessar o produtor
a
forte
grassroots
através
work there. We need to
sentar
reach
pelo
out to
menos a primeira
farmers
vez na mesa de
and
negociações.
at least
Então,
sit
isso,
down
sem
for a
dúvida,
first time
desafio.
at the
Como
negotiation
nós
table,
trouxemos antes ali,
which again is
toda a
obviously a
nossa proposta
challenge.
de
As
valor,
we
ela
mentioned
ajuda muito
before,
nisso.
our entire
Mas
value proposition
é,
really helps us with
digamos assim,
that.
é o passo, é o ritmo que a gente vai conseguir dar
Still,
nisso, é o nosso
it's
ritmo
about
de
the
crescimento e
pace
efetividade que a
that
gente
we
vai
will
ter
be
no
doing that,
crescimento e
which will
na conquista
dictate
de
the
mercados e
pace that
market
we'll be
share.
able to
Até
grow
para não
and
ser
increase our market share.
atendimento, relacionamento superficial, né? Nós
Yeah, and we
realmente
can't
tentamos,
make that a
fazer
superficial relationship.
atendimento diferenciado, né? Isso
We are offering an outstanding service, and this really challenges us in terms of the pace we're able to grow in that sense.
Pode passar ali.
Absolutely.
E aqui pouco do resumo dos nossos investimentos, né? E também eu acho que não é novidade, mas eu acho que é importante a gente destacar ou fazer esse resumo aqui.
Yeah, I think
Falando
it's
aqui já
important
em
to
Rio Grande
point
do Sul,
out
Mato Grosso,
or
nos
to
últimos 2
sum
anos e
things
meio.
up, talking about Rio Grande do Sul and Mato Grosso and everything that we've done in the last 2.5 years. During this time,
o plano do IPO e o que estava planejado ali,
we invested much of what we had in our IPO,
Então, obviamente que
which
o-
added to
a indústria de
1.4.
Vera, né, com a capacidade hoje instalada já de 2.600 toneladas por dia, é o
2.6
grande
tons a
investimento.
day.
E o aumento de
That was
lojas,
the
né, então,
major
houve um
investment,
aumento
and
de
also
53 lojas
an
nesses
increase in the
últimos
number of
30 meses,
stores,
53%
which went up
das lojas,
53%
foram
over
21 lojas
these
novas, então
last
tínhamos,
17
no
months.
pré-IPO 40 unidades.
So pre-IPO we had
Hoje, 61,
14 units.
foram
We now had
14 novas
61. So
unidades no Rio Grande do
14
Sul,
new
7
stores
no
in the
Mato
state of Rio
Grosso,
Grande do Sul
e também
and
a
7
evolução
in
da
the state of
indústria
Mato
de Cruz
Grosso.
Alta, que ela era
And
uma
we
indústria de 1.000
also
toneladas
grew
dia,
our
e ela passou
plant
pra
in
2.000
Cruz Alta,
toneladas dia, também foi feito,
which
foi
went to 2 tons a day.
expansão que não já era, digamos assim, já era plano de investimento pré-IPO,
And this
mas que
was
foi
part of our
concluído
investment
e foi
plan
desenvolvido
pre-IPO,
nesse
but which
período.
was conducted and
Então, aqui está o
completed
ciclo,
during this time.
mas
So here we
principalmente eu acho
have
que o que a
a
gente
snapshot of the
destaca,
cycle.
essa informação
But
ela ficou
one
pouquinho
thing
no
we
canto
want
aqui,
to stress
que foi a nossa geração de caixa no mesmo período,
was how much
nesses
cash we were
mesmos
able to
30
generate
meses,
during
ela
the
foi
same
praticamente o valor do investimento.
the same
Então, a
30-month
empresa
period.
investiu 1.4 bilhões
So the company invested
gerou
1.4 billion
1.35 bilhão
and
de caixa
generated
livre
1.35 million
Então, acho que isso,
in free cash flow
de certa
throughout the
forma,
operation.
também ajudou e nos
I
ajuda
think
a
that
ter
that,
essa
in a way,
consistência
has
financeira,
helped
essa
us to be
segurança,
as
que o
financially
Eduardo destacou
consistent
ali, que a gente
and
vai estar
as
tratando aqui
confident as was said
no
before,
decorrer do dia de hoje, enfim, que a
which
gente
is
trata
what
com
we'll
vocês
be
no dia a dia.
addressing throughout the day today and what
Eu
we
acho que,
stress
né,
with
a gente
each
tem
and
mais
every one
algumas
of you
coisas aqui.
in our
Nós
day-to-day work.
entendemos
Well, there are a few more
execução
points we wanted to
bem-sucedida
address. We understand that our
nossa
operation was
jornada em
very
Mato Grosso.
successful
Mas eu ia
throughout
pedir
our
pro Eduardo
journey
Menezes,
here in the
nosso
state of Mato
diretor
Grosso so
comercial,
far, but I'd like
para
Eduardo
também trazer
Menezes,
da
our
visão
sales
dele,
director,
trazer
to
pouco de como
also
foi
add a little
essa-
bit of his
essa
perspective and
execução e essa entrada e esse
what was
crescimento aqui
that
no Mato Grosso.
execution was
Beleza,
like
obrigado,
as we
João,
came into the
obrigado,
state of
Luiz.
Mato Grosso.
Boa tarde a
Very
todos
well,
os
thank you,
convidados.
João and Luis.
É uma satisfação falar
Good
com
afternoon to
vocês, falar com os
everyone
nossos
here with
participantes
joining us
online
here.
também.
It's a great pleasure to be talking to everyone here in person and also our attendees online and I'm very thankful to be able to talk about our successes, and I also have time to spare, so I'll be going over a number of things here with you. More important than anything, I think it's imperative to talk about the investment that we made back in 2020 and which materialized soon afterwards. And this involves the number of people that we've worked with. This is the mainstay of this project and this ecosystem. It's what's given it life and allowed it to generate results. Professional training of the people who believed in us and which have been enabled this to come to life every day, and we have been very cheerful about these results. As João quickly mentioned, we went from 40 stores to 57 at the end of 2022. Now we have another 4 stores, so adding up to 61. And in addition to involving the number of consultants, and we went to 93 at the end of 2020 to 145 last year. And this is the number of people who are on the field at the beginning of grain origination, but most importantly, recommending management, operations, and input management. We should end the year with 154 consultants. This is not everything. This is only part of the group of people who are enabling all our growth. In order to do that, we set out our business units. In Rio Grande do Sul, we have 3, and in Mato Grosso, 2 business management units, which are above sales management. You will be able to meet 2 of those managers ahead of these units later on. And we had over 14 unit managers across these 21 units. So it's not only about consultants and business managers. We also have the entire support team in the commodities department, and especially ag inputs and marketing department, which really lead us to focus on our plan and work on our plans and actions to deliver the results and final performance. And I'd like to take the opportunity to thank all of these people who have joined the company to focus on this growth plan and which have made 3tentos a success in its results. This is something we celebrate every day, and we're seeing all of that take place with a very healthy pace. And as João said, it's not all a bed of roses. It's about logistics to deliver a unit in time to receive grain, especially in Rio Grande do Sul. If you're not prepared to receive the grain by March 5th, we won't lose just 10 days of the harvest. We will lose the entire year. We will only be able to get the grain the year afterward. So we have a few very important dates to get the delivery and continue to follow with our plan. So as I said before, we already have 155 consultants seeing these 61 stores. As I said, we also have 3 other stores that we have been prospecting in the state of Rio Grande do Sul, and we're on track to buy the new plots. And a few of our teams are already being hired, and we should communicate to the market that new development very soon. As for consultants, again, as I said, we should have 154 by the end of 2023. And these people will be helping us to continue delivering according to plan. Now, just a few of our stores, both in the state of Mato Grosso and the state of Rio Grande do Sul. Here we have 3 in Mato Grosso the one where we're standing today, and this is day one for the entire people working downstairs, seeing customers, and the structure where you're sitting today is where the corporate offices will be to support all our operations here in the state of Mato Grosso. Then Matupá, as João Marcelo said, this is a unit that's in an area more focused on livestock, so there will be a lot of opportunity to distribute soybean and corn, and it's really representative of our ecosystem, which involves the input retail operation, but also management of grain in store. So both Matupá, Alta Floresta, and now Alto Biratã will be following this model that we have here in Matupá. Afterwards, Sorriso, Sinop, and Lucas do Rio Verde, which are the ones we call mega stores, meaning these are stores that will have a large capacity for input storage for crop protection, which will supply every stores in the area. These are distribution centers with customer service as well. So 3 stores in Mato Grosso and 3 stores in different areas of Rio Grande do Sul, which were open in 2022 and which have already originated soybeans in 23 and will also be originating wheat in Q3. First, 3 de Maio in northwest of the state, Rosario do Sul in the south, and Nonoai in the northernmost part of the state. And here in the case of Rio Grande do Sul, these are what we call P model stores. So input management and a lot less grain because there are units close to these stores where we have larger static capacity. So we work on short-term distribution, but at the same time supplying the larger stores as well.
Now, finally, this is the main pillar of our work. This is why we're quite optimistic in terms of results, regardless of the decrease in input prices, especially when we look at the results of the first quarter 2023, we can confidently say that the model we've been working on works. We're talking about consultants, trainings, individual development plans for the consultants that join our company, 3tentos. They should have a great source of information so they can provide the best management practices to our farmers. This is an essential step for us. Alan, from the marketing department, is the leader of our marketing academy. This is a well put together initiative that we came up with this year to provide technical support to our team, to provide better business intelligence, to better create demands, to create action plans. We believe this is going to be an important front to increase the learning speed of our teams. I should also highlight history data on seeds, fertilizers, and chemicals. In the past year, there's been a price decrease in chemicals. Everyone knows that. But in terms of volumes, when we look at the charts, in terms of product volumes, in the first half of 2023, what we can see is that there's been consistent growth in every single input segment. This growth is close to 50%. That is what makes us optimistic. In the 21st stores we opened up, we can see that there's been a great curve since we're now entering the market, but then we also gain traction in terms of revenue. And we believe that is going to come about because we already see important volume growth in the three main segments we work in. So I'm talking about consistent volume growth. That's why we're so optimistic, because the second half of the year is usually where we sell 2/3 of our inputs. That's where we really make a difference. That's how we can provide support to our farmers. I'm talking about inputs, logistics. In the second half of the year, that's when we can actually do our job as consultants. On that note, it's also important to highlight that we are growing in our old stores too. The old stores are the ones that are more mature, so to speak. So it's not only about expansion. What we see is that farmers are quite delighted by the stores that have been around for 5 years or more. In those stores, we also see that we're delivering consistently, even in difficult markets, in the markets where we know most of the customers, because we're providing new tools. These new tools open up new doors for these customers. Some of them bought from us in the past and stopped, and we're sure that volume-wise, this is going to be reflected. As we recover the Rio Grande do Sul market, well, this has a lot to do with the 2 difficult years we had. When we think about climate change, when we think of the positive perspective of El Niño, that also makes us excited because we think farmers will invest more. During these periods, when we have El Niño in southern Brazil, we have reached all-time highs in terms of yields, and we want to be there to capture these opportunities. We want to be by the farmer's side so that these opportunities can be translated into yields and profitability. Like Luis said, in the state of Mato Grosso, in the first half of this year, 21% of our input revenue could be seen. In July, we celebrated the second anniversary of the visits we have paid to this place to choose the right land, to hire the right people. And this state now accounts for 21% of our input revenue, which is quite outstanding. If we think about climate hedging and risk in the state of Mato Grosso, we got a great path for growth in terms of volume and in terms of number of new customers. So there's a lot to come. We're confident. We really trust in the teams that we have put together, and as we look at the ecosystem and the benefits that we can reap. That's what I had to say.
Complementando o que o Eduardo falou, acho que
That's great.
Essa questão de volumes, a gente trouxe isso no call de resultados também.
We talked about volumes in our earnings release call. We talked about price fluctuations that can sometimes inflate our revenue, that can sometimes make these numbers drop, but volume consistency is our guiding star. That's the main metric we follow, because that's where we really want to grow. That's how we want to gain more market share. Okay, over to you, Mater. We do have a few minutes left, though. Okay, everyone. We're now going to break for a few minutes. We're breaking for 30 minutes. So we'll be back in 30 minutes to talk about commodities and inputs. We'll be back at 5:15 Brazilian time, 5:15. Thank you.
Três pilares do campo, do relacionamento e da segurança estão cada vez mais importantes e mais fortes dentro da companhia e principalmente nesse relacionamento que nós temos com todos os colegas produtores rurais.
Nós estamos firmes, preparados, dispostos e juntos aqui para a gente estar encarando esse nosso próximo ciclo agrícola aí com toda a força aí para nós ter os melhores resultados.
Nossa parceria nasce no campo e se mantém no campo.
Muito obrigado a todos vocês.
três pilares do campo, do relacionamento e da segurança estão cada vez mais importantes e mais fortes dentro da companhia e principalmente nesse relacionamento que nós temos com todos os colegas produtores rurais.
estamos firmes, preparados, dispostos e juntos aqui para a gente estar encarando esse nosso próximo ciclo agrícola aí com toda a força aí para nós ter os melhores resultados.
Nossa parceria nasce no campo e se mantém no campo.
Muito obrigado a todos vocês.
Pessoal, boa tarde a todos. Primeiramente, não tenho como agradecer novamente que o Luiz Osório e o João Marcelo fizeram, a presença de todos vocês. A gente sabe que não é fácil se deslocar. Agradecer também ao pessoal. O momento agora é tentar passar um pouquinho para vocês. Só coloca a apresentação para mim.
Can you pull up
Aqui.
my presentation, please?
Nós passarmos agora um segundo bloco desse 300 Day e falar um pouco mais sobre a operação em si e todos os pontos que nós queremos conectar. Qual que é o nosso objetivo aqui? Quando nós olhamos a nossa operação como um todo, grãos, insumos e indústria, nós acreditamos que grande parte da nossa geração de valor está nesses temas aqui vinculados ao ambiental, digital, logística e também aspecto financeiro. Mas para primeiro fazer essa primeira abordagem, eu gostaria de chamar aqui o Benho, que é o nosso diretor de insumos, e também o Luiz Augusto do Moncel, que é o nosso diretor de commodities, para se juntar aqui conosco para tentar abordar os próximos 30 minutos da operação como um todo.
In the next 30 minutes, we'll be talking about our operations, and we're going to give you some context on what is to come. Welcome. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon to everyone who's watching us in person and online. It's an honor to have you here on such an important day. Welcome. Good afternoon, everyone. Once again, thank you very much for being here. Thank you to everyone who's watching us online as well. Along with Alan, we're going to give you some details on very important topics. Like Luiz Osório said before, we want to give you the context of our operations. A lot of what you see on the slide has already been said before, but we wanted to give you these details in the context of our operations. When we look at our stores, well, these stores are seen from an admin, financial, sales, and operational standpoint. Now, for inputs and for grains, those who are located in our stores are the ones who interface directly with our farmers. They are the ones who show farmers our value proposition. So we'll begin by telling you what we have been doing day in, day out, so that we can deliver value with inputs, and what is going to be done from now on in our stores as we expand. Okay, Alan, first and foremost, talking about our stores are way more than just a brick and mortar place where they can come, buy input, pay, and exchange technical information. For us, our stores are the places where we can really connect with our customers. This is the place where we can share our knowledge with them, and this is where we can talk to them so we can actually understand what their needs are. By connecting with them, we can think about what the best solution is, according to the region where we are located. Of course, communication is important. We use different tools to talk to our customers, but our stores will always be at the core of our operations because they provide our farmers with a safe space. They know that inputs will always be available to them whenever they need. They know that we do have a structure in place where we can receive their grains and transaction whatever needs to be transactioned. We apologize, we can no longer hear the mics. Once again, we apologize. We can't really hear the speakers. We'll be back in a moment.
A capacidade estática, essa relevância que nós estamos ou que temos e que estamos tendo, né, nos novos mercados de
We are becoming increasingly relevant in the markets where we are expanding. And that becomes ever more important for our operations. We provide storage, standardization services, as well as sales. Farmers can sell forward, prices can be fixed. We provide barter operations. We can negotiate inputs in our stores. And that's why our teams need to be ready to talk to our farmers, not only in terms of the technical aspects of seeds, fertilizers, and chemicals, but also to give them the information they need, as well as supply and demand information in the state of Mato Grosso, in Brazil, in South America, and on a global level, also considering the demands rising from China. Now, training is very important because our customers, those who sell inputs, they look like vendors, or they're vendors that look like customers. They sort of merge. Our consultants, our teams, they interact with these folks whenever they buy or sell goods. That's great. That's the way we've been training our teams in the stores. Our teams have to be trained so they can talk about input and grains alike. That is in line with the questions investors usually ask us. When it comes to input and grains, it's important to understand what the life cycle is on the farmer's end. Some of you have seen this chart already. This is the soybean season 2023-24. 73% of investments are made before the planting season. So once the seed is on the ground, 73% of the farmer's costs have been defined already. This is what we call yield promoters. So whatever they do up until the planting season, we help them increase their yields. Afterwards, they have to do things so they can prevent loss. So input and grains are all thought of before the planting season or during that planting season. Now, whenever we look at this cycle, how do we see sales, stocks, and input prices for our ongoing season? Well, first thing that comes to mind is that my hair is grayer and grayer because of the fact that we've been seeing extreme price variations in our inputs. Of course, that increases our complexity level when it comes to managing this cycle. But once again, over the past 28 years, we've been growing closer and closer to our customers and vendors. And this is truly helpful in this moment. It's easier to find alternatives and solutions when things go south. When we think that 73% of the input and the solutions that we had for growers had already been implemented to their farm, then our problem was to focus on the remaining 20 or 30%, which was quite a severe situation because of the drought we saw in southern Brazil. That's why we have to be close to our vendors. Since that is the case, we managed to negotiate with them. We came to commercial agreements and we mitigated the impact of price variation. And we have managed to sell most of the remaining volume because of this variation. So as I look at this chart, I see a great opportunity because of our ecosystem and because of the close relationship we have with different stakeholders, we can make the most out of this situation. So since last year, we have gained traction, especially for seeds and fertilizers. When we look at our volumes, we are selling 50 or 60% more year over year. So we got more effective traction. And I can tell you we've been quite optimistic towards the second half of this year because I can tell you we have negotiated these inputs at lower levels, and now that's what we're considering as we talk to our customers. Now, from a logistics standpoint, since negotiations have been stuck, new opportunities may arise because of the capillarity of our structures and because of how close we work with our customers. So for us, these negotiations that were stuck pose an opportunity for us, both to gain more market share and also to get more revenue on top of that. Okay, thank you, Ben-Hur. Now, Luis Augusto, when we think about investments and grain origination, as well as barter operations, how do you go about that? Well, we're talking about costs for soybeans, but whenever we talk about wheat or corn, the trend is the same. That is to say that the main investment they make goes up until the moment they put the seed on the ground. We're talking about fertilizers, burn down. So the same thing goes for corn and beans. And this has a direct relationship with the speed we sell these farmers' grains. This also means that as they make different decisions on what they're going to invest in, they also have to hedge their production costs. What we have seen in the past year, or in the two past years rather, both in Rio Grande do Sul and Mato Grosso states, was that farmers have made this movement at a slower pace, but this trend will be there for next year. That is to say that farmers are also taking up risk, or they're changing the way they sell because of the current financial situation they're facing. In the state of Mato Grosso, barter may already be available. Products sometimes are also available, but like we tell you all the time, during the year, barter is not only barter per se. At 3tentos, this accounts for 25% of our input sales. Now, this chart shows direct relation between these elements, and it's important for farmers to also be aware of that. That is what we try to, the message we try to convey.
And also considering the slower pace among farmers, we also saw a scenario for especially soybean premiums, which were very much down because that moment when farmers were selling sort of shifted. So they were a bit shorter and the premium was then down. And for farmers whose production costs had not been hedged, ultimately pulled them up and also affected input prices. In the state of Rio Grande do Sul, it was much the same, even because of the stronger drought. And next year, we have been pushing farmers to move that relationship forward. So today, it's about understanding this movement and how it will unfold so that we can also keep track of grain sales and its environment. In addition to that, grain also works for us when it comes to credit so that we can provide more safety in our input negotiations. So that also affects this direct relationship with this effect on inputs. Yeah, there's a last issue that I would like to talk about concerning this slide. Here we can translate both our input business and our grain business, which is something that we're very passionate about because our business is completely interconnected. But there's also something interesting, which is when we look at this, this is our farmer's entire life. And this shows what is our main driver. We need to move the lever on the leftmost side, which is profitability. And Marcelo also mentioned the transfer of technology in his speech. And we also believe that as a company, we must be a company that brings new technology and that translates technology. So I'd like to know what our R&D or RD&I has been doing to expand and to support this expansion into new areas and new stores. Well, there's something important here when we talk about RD&I, and I'm a bit biased because we are really in love with this model of generation of knowledge and knowledge transfer. And we love the fact that we learn so much from these interactions. But when we look at the level of technology that's coming up and the potential leverage for investments in terms of production across the country, that takes us deeper and deeper into how we can extract or how we can derive value from this tool. So I think that right now, we are very much focused on creating information and turning that information into knowledge. And knowledge is multifaceted. Sometimes we generate knowledge for farmers, but also because of where we are on the field, capturing demand and information, we also generate more efficient information. And I think that's where the challenge is. We want our clients to be successful. And you probably heard that sentence before. And this takes us back to the previous slide. In order for us to be more accurate with our consultants' work, which is where the value is, we also cannot be remiss with the other ones because we also want to have an impact on that work. So our RD&I is exactly there, connecting our products, the historical concepts which will never be outdated. And as we update them within this new platform, this new communication and information platform, is what will help us generate or create value to our customers and make them more efficient in terms of generating higher financial results. As they do that, our operation will become more secure, which is why it involves people and training to help make each and every one of us reflect these investments at the very end of the service. So it's also about the philosophy of how we take this to clients and translate all of this work to our relationship with them. Yeah, so it's much of the role that RD&I plays in our work is impacting the workers on the field to have the technical knowledge to help farmers on the field. Yeah, I just wanted to add that we have spent and devoted much of our energy in that, in several respects, one of them being, how can I be better positioned and have more knowledge in the next 30 to 60 days so that our team is better prepared? Following that, how do I validate all of that with our clients so that we have more confidence in that? And the next is, how can we prepare our team? How can we keep the team looking forward, thinking about new technologies, a better positioning? So these are the different optics in training that we move through as we prepare our associates. Yeah, and it's important to make it clear that our operation, our expansion has come in a very strong way, and our need to be with the end clients. We have created an academy both for consultants and field operators. And this is also a way of training and build skills, all while cultivating our culture of being close to farmers. So we are training all our teams And of course, this involves this team of very passionate people. And this is much of what we've been doing in each of our units. So we have 27 units, each of them with 57 maps, and these are the indicators we've been working with. But more than the indicators, as we showed you with stores, we believe that managers are really the conductors in terms of coordinating what can be done in each one of these units to continue to be efficient and continue to generate value. And what you'll see here, especially in the first two KPIs, we have grain generators, which is an engine for the company's revenue, and also barter, which is something that we want to move forward on, and it's part of our strategy. So in this point, Augusto, what has the company been doing to be able to improve the flow through these stores when it comes to grain? Well, what I mentioned initially, Alan, with regard to the static issue with each store and how we've been challenging ourselves to increase our share in grains will obviously reflect in our origination plan, because part of that is focused on supplying our plants. Part of that has to do with our origination targets, which cascade out to each one of our units. So we have this barter ecosystem, and the safety of the business in general, also encompassing soybean and corn. And obviously, we need to find ways to execute all of that. So in the last 2 years, our map has grown a little bit. Before, we were very much focused on the logistics corridors here in Rio Grande do Sul, meaning north of the state to the Rio Grande port, also the south part, and obviously understanding our share in the internal market for feed plants and the market at large, obviously, in addition to 3tentos' plants. And in the last 2 years, we have also begun to live with new corridors and new ports where we also operate. A few days ago, we had our first export sale here from Mato Grosso via the port of Santos, using a specific railway. And in a few days, we will be exporting the first shipment of corn. Now, how does this relate to the initial static and the plan that Alan was showing us with our strategic map? Well, we must understand the plan of our branch and the challenges that we have in terms of volume, and we'll have to look at this in order to be able to perform. And of course, this will have to keep pace with farmers, considering that when we negotiate logistics, we try to work on origination the best possible way. And of course, this also involves this reverse logistics, especially when it comes to inputs and fertilizers, because we're using the same logistics corridors. We are huge exporters, whether we're talking about grains or byproducts. We are very important fertilizer exporters, and many of them are used in Rio Grande do Sul and now also here in Mato Grosso. So when it comes to wheat, corn, and soybean, we have talked a lot about, most of you, about how this is distributed to each destination. And also arbitration, which is also very important, whether we're talking about logistics, meaning is it worth to work more on the northern arch or the southern arch? Are we talking about exports or sale in-house within also manufacturing, which I would say it's natural for 3tentos since forever when we're talking about soybean oil and biodiesel. So we can make that decision. We have sold soybean at one point. Our focus is obviously to enable biodiesel production, but we have very positive prospects, considering the latest set of news, to continue to follow our schedule, and not only that, but to stay ahead of schedule at one point. And this is something that has moved the market in a way, this news cycle, and is a positive point for Mato Grosso to move forward with this new trend in biodiesel. So just going back a little bit, we talked about inputs, grain, and manufacturing. We connected all of that. Now I want to go back to that connection from a sustainability perspective. So what have we been doing from a sustainability perspective, considering the value we're generating in each one of the building blocks? So one of our initiatives is to identify our farmers with this stamp, going from analysis, data collection, and report delivery, looking at each wheat, soybean, and corn farmer within our client base. And this connects to all our businesses, both grain and input and also manufacturing. Now, how does this initiative connect to biodiesel specifically? Well, it connects not only to biodiesel, but our entire value chain in our connection with farmers, including not only this bias, but a very critical connection with sustainability and traceability. And I mentioned traceability because it all starts with our knowing and being very confident about where the product that we're originating comes from, now specifically talking about grain. Of course, if we are then selling oil or bran or biodiesel, we as a company, if we are sure of our traceability, in addition to complying with a requirement in different markets, and it's common sense that markets are becoming increasingly demanding, we can not only participate, but also add value to our clients, especially with our traceability work. All right, so going back to the stores, going for RD&I inputs, how does this connect to the value proposition that we offer our farmers? Well, this takes me back to a word I used before, which is efficiency. Whenever I can be efficient in my operation, that makes me more sustainable. Taking more of an inputs and RD&I perspective, when we find the best way, at the best time, in the best area to produce, and in which situation our pesticides can be applied, or which cultivar we'll be working on, which cover crops we'll be working with, and from then having a better positioning considering weather, temperature, wind, humidity information, so that that input that we're working can perform better. That's me being sustainable. So the more efficient I can make this connection and work on this everyday connection with the client, I am delivering both a more sustainable environment and a more sustainable agriculture. And of course, there are new technologies that will enable you to do all of that, whether they are biotechnologies connected with genome work, but as we were discussing earlier, the use of bioproducts, for example, these are industries that add a more sustainable aspect even to the products, but also the new technologies that we're delivering, generating technological investment, but also delivering better results to the chain. Today, we have the opportunity of being more sustainable across every link in the chain. And of course, each one of us will talk a little bit more about the area where we work, but ever since we start, from the moment we start and things are still on the paper, we can be more sustainable and efficient. And we've been doing that in many respects. In logistics, for example, when we're taking bran and bringing in fertilizers using the same structure, I think that we're being more efficient and sustainable in that way. And I think that this is a lot more a part of our day-to-day work than we can imagine. I feel like we have really been trying to be more sustainable in everything that we do. Yeah, and across those same lines, where one point really supports the other, and that intimacy with our farmers also help us to participate in programs such as Renova Bio. which focuses on the emission of sea bios, even improving or offering the opportunity to improve our score so that we can reduce our carbon footprint in a specific area and making the entire chain more sustainable. Right, so over the course of our panel, we've tried to look at each one of those aspects, input, grain, and fertilizers, connecting with the sustainability aspect, but I'd be remiss if I didn't finish this panel also talking about each one of these pillars with our agendas for tomorrow when it comes to innovation and also digital expansion. As you've seen throughout our presentations, these are a few of our initiatives and tools, some of which are very connected to our day-to-day work, others not so much right now, but which will be in the future. Either way, I'd like to stress a few of them. First of them being that 10% of our fixing in a universe of 6 digital stores are done online. So 6 of our stores operate virtually digital only with our farmers. The work that we do in connection with RD&I, with producers, maintainers, and what's going on in the farmer, on the context of the farmer, we have a team helping them to adjust their sales. So we have over 40 million sales influencers for specific producers, specific farmers. And their income represent one of a medium-sized store. And another thing we had to mention, this productivity that we mentioned here, 6.2% increase in yield, represent what our team is doing on the field. This is something that we believe help us cross-sell and increase our credibility in the face of our farmers. We won't be able to answer all your questions, but we will have more time later, and you can also reach us via email. I'd like to thank Luis Augusto and Ben-Hur for participating in this chat. We are right on time with 30 minutes, and now I'd like to call in Luis Pedro Mancel, our Financial Services Director at 3tentos, as well as Cristiano Costa, our CFO.
Boa tarde, pessoal.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Maravilha. Luis Pedro, começando por ti.
Hello, Luis Pedro. We can start with you. We have recently acquired a 3tentos cap. How do you believe a 3tentos cap can add even more value to our ecosystem?
Bom, obrigado pela pergunta e
thank you for your question, Alan. I think this was said before, but once again, thank you very much for being here. We're bringing together the financial market with agribusiness. And we're here just by the BR-163 road. This is a very concrete example of how we can build more synergies. Now, let me delve into the question you asked. 3tentos Cap used to be a company that was incubated by 3tentos, so it has been connected to our business model from the very get-go. However, it was a different company. Now, 3tentos Cap was acquired by 3tentos, and now we have full integration between these two operations. This process took us a year. We had to explain to the Brazilian Central Bank what was the foundation of this operation, and we had to wait until we got the final approval. Now, 3tentos Cap is yet another pillar of our financial operations. This is fully connected to what was said before. This is all about innovation. The idea is not to be another credit provider like we see in the market. 3tentos Cap has a different value proposition. It's going to be a 3tentos fintech. We want to provide financial products and services that are truly tailor-made.
O balcão da 3tentos, nós como Tentos Cap e como 3tentos identificamos ou lapidamos
at Tentos Cap and 3tentos, we want to hear what the pain points are. And since we're flexible, and since Tentos Cap is still a small organization as compared to 3tentos, we can work fast so as to cater to these demands and move forward. If we look at Tentos Cap's portfolio of products and services, what has been in place in the past 2 years, it all started with credits. So we started with loans. We're going to give you more information on our funding sources. Then we evolved with insurance services. We came up with our own insurance company, and we're now moving to the second product cycle. We're now selling crop insurance services and products. We also have a payment vertical. Here it's important to highlight our credit card. We're very proud to say that we have the first and only credit card providing the season deadline for payments. So farmers can go to a gas station, they can go to whatever store that accepts the Visa credit cards, and they can pay for that only during the season. Tentos Cap funds that. Since we have great synergy with 3tentos, they can pay for their bills in soybeans. So farmers can purchase a cup of coffee, they can buy for their fuel, and at the end of the season, or even in season, they can pay for that bill in soybeans. Before moving to our new office in Ijuí, the Tentos Cap office was just by the weighers. So when farmers came to deliver their grains, we thought that that truck, that content could be used to pay for their bill, for their credit card. Now, how do we fund that? This question has been answered before, but I know many people ask us about that as of today. They ask us if we have different funds. Well, we are a finance institution authorized by the central bank, been authorized to carry out investments since June 2021. We can issue different bonds in Brazil, such as the LCA, CDBs, but we prioritize LCAs because it is more competitive, and within our Basel operational thresholds, we can also leverage those figures to be more efficient. We got 3 platforms that are our main partners in terms of financial resources origination that will later be lent to our customers, namely BTG, XP, and New Invest. These are the 3 platforms that Brazilian individuals can buy LCA bonds.
Outro ponto que é legal a gente trazer aqui, eu acho que está 100% dentro do nosso contexto, a Tentos Cap já tem
Another important point is that Tentos Cap has kickstarted their operations in the state of Mato Grosso, and once again, we can see that there is great synergy right there and then. This is the best word to describe financial operations, along with 3tentos anticipating corn contracts for the season that is about to end. We have provided credits through regular CPR operations, 5% of our portfolio and credit risk is located in Mato Grosso. We want to expand that to have a healthy climate hedge, since in Rio Grande do Sul, we've seen 2 crop failures, and we believe we have an opportunity in the state of Mato Grosso of having a healthier portfolio from a risk coverage standpoint. I also wanted to touch on the transition aspects. Our operations at Tentos Cap kickstarted on segment 5. The central bank oversees this operation in a simplified mode, and now we're moving towards segment 4 that will have greater oversight, and we believe that is a good aspect. We will have better risk controls, and this will yet be another strength for us. 3tentos is in close contact with different instances, with different institutions that aim at strengthening companies, such as the Brazilian SEC, the CVM, since we are a listed company, and also the central bank, which is a fantastic institution that provides support to financial institutions in terms of risk control, so that these companies can grow more and more solid. This is something that the central bank will also help us in our ecosystem with. 150 million real have been lent to our customers. These loans were done using our balance funds. Another important figure is that Tentos Cap has their own insurance broker, so we can mediate these insurances from the most solid companies on the market, not only to bring about more profits, since we got great margins right there, but also because we want to have better credit protection for our 3tentos portfolio whenever we provide loans to farmers, or even considering our credit portfolio at Tentos Cap, which is the main beneficiary of these deals that, as brokers, we can provide our customers with. Now, in conclusion, and to address the question you asked, I would say that Tentos Cap brings an additional layer to our relationship with our customers, and above all, we can help farmers become more solid from a financial standpoint and provide a healthier relationship with them. Tentos Cap, along with 3tentos, provides many benefits risk-wise, also to investors who buy these bonds from Tentos Cap. So in a nutshell, it's all about synergy. Great, Luis Pedro. Business synergies are also important. We've been hearing about financial pain points on the farmer's side, and these pain points oftentimes have to do with management practices. So this is one of the solutions we're providing. We're helping them better manage their financials as well. Now, Cristiano, our earnings call was released a few days ago, but I wanted to ask you a question on that. Can you talk about our financial results? How does that connect to our everyday processes and the people we have at 3tentos? Thank you, Alan. Once again, thank you very much for joining us here today. It's a great pleasure to have you. Thank you for being here in person, and thank you to those who were watching us online. This is a very important day for 3tentos. We are here in the Sinop store Tomorrow, we're going to visit our plant. And this comes to show that we are really delivering based on what we are committed to. It's also important to highlight that at 3tentos, we have three core values. The first one is the field. We do understand that we're all passionate about the business, that we understand what the business is about. The second value is partnership. As our directors spoke, you could see that this word came up over and over again. Our vendors are our partners. Our farmers are partners as well. And the third value is something we really want to underpin, which is safety. We're talking about using PPE, we're talking about our employees, but we're also talking about different places. We're also talking about the decision-making processes, namely the financial decisions we make. That's why it's so important to have you here. At the end of the day, it's not only about technology or the plans we have, it's also about having solid financial foundations. This is the very first point I would like to highlight. Now on the slide, you can see some figures that help you understand what I'm talking about. Before going public, our revenue grew a lot, our EBITDA grew a lot, but our net debt EBITDA ratio was quite stable, or it decreased quite a bit. So we've been working hard internally to make sure we can face the forthcoming challenges. We see that many companies from different industries oftentimes see their financial results hurt because of their debt, because of this high interest rate environment. And we're pleased to say that after the IPO, we're very solid from a financial standpoint. We're also working on a qualitative level. We want these elements to generate more value to our investors. We want the net debt to be paid for. As we build better and better reputation, we see that that is possible and that we can do that at a lower cost. That is the vision we have for the future. These results that are very solid, they are achieved based on two main pillars. The first one is our processes. We work on a daily basis to make sure that our financial processes, accountancy processes, legal processes, treasury processes, planning and budget processes, we want this to be consolidated processes that are fine-tuned, using new technologies, using automation, and by training people as well. Alan mentioned our sales academy, and we do that because we want to care for each and every one of the processes we have in place. Carbon credits, for example, it all starts with the registration process. At Tentos Cap, the process is called Know Your Client. I could list many other processes we have in place. We have to be mindful of those processes, but this is only possible because of our people. Our financial team, our team of accountants are highly qualified. We got a great treasury team and also a great tax team. As our company grows, challenges grow as well. Luis Augusto talked about grain origination, he talked about our operations. If we want to be safe enough, we have to make good use of all financial tools we have in place. And that is reflected in our balance sheet and financial results. I don't mean to delve into the numbers, since we have just released our earnings call, but I wanted to say that we are quite solid and we're prepared for what's to come. Alan, over to you.
Pessoal, então nós chegamos ao fim, aqueles dois painéis.
Thank you very much. This concludes the second session on value creation. We wanted to be fully transparent with you. We wanted to talk about our operations, and we're also here to address the questions you may have. Now, before moving to the Q&A session, thank you, Juliano, Luis Pedro. We're going to have one last session before the Q&A session.
Beleza, obrigado, Alan. A ideia agora é nós já nos encaminhar para esse fechamento da nossa apresentação.
Thank you, Alan.
Do que a gente
Now we're
tinha
moving
para
towards
mostrar,
the end of our
primeiramente, para
presentation.
vocês, né, e deixar um espaço maior para o debate, que eu acho que é o
And we're going to have some minutes for our Q&A session.
E o que a gente traz aqui como expectativas futuras, né?
Let's talk about future expectations for the three segments we have at 3tentos: inputs, grains, and the industry.
O que a gente está já encaminhando para esses próximos ciclos?
For the next cycle, this is what we're thinking
a
of.
finalização do número de lojas.
Number one, the number of stores we have. By the end of 2023, we should have 64 stores in place. This is our growth curve, and we should reach this figure in terms of covered hectares. Of course, we'll have more people out in the field, better sales market share, both in mature regions and in these stores that are to be opened. Grains origination.
O que a gente entende que vai
This is the way to go.
Nos próximos anos, né? Fechando crescimento de 50% na
50% growth for soybeans origination,
2 milhões de toneladas, pouco mais de 2 milhões
from
de
2 million
toneladas
tons
para 3 milhões de
in 2023, we should move to 3 million tons by 2025.
Incremento importante aqui no Mato Grosso.
This is a great growth in the state of Mato Grosso, both for exports, sales, and also to our plant. Corn, same thing. In Mato Grosso, we should see an increase in corn origination by working with barter, inputs, and by gaining traction in these products. And wheat in southern Brazil, this is connected to new tools, new inputs, new barter generation tools, and new negotiation tools. We should see an increase in our volume. We should see a 25% growth by 2025. Now for the industry, along those lines, I think it's important to highlight soybeans processing. For 2023, 1.5 million tons, 120,000 tons above our expectations. That is to say that by gaining this traction and by gaining more effectiveness in the state of Mato Grosso, we'll be able to deliver this volume that will be above what was forecast in the first reports that we had.
So we expect to grow by 21% next year. Now, waiting for our Mato Grosso plant to perform throughout the entire year, unlike this year where we'll have only the results for one half of the year, and then also in Rio Grande do Sul with the gains in productivity from our plant in the city of Cruz Alta. As we expand that, we expect to see gains in performance in it as well. Now, thinking about 2025, we will have the expansion in our de Vera plant. We'll be visiting the plant tomorrow, and we'll be able to see the finishing works, because we're still at the final stage of construction and finishing, but we already have the plant open and performing. And you'll be able to see all the preparation that we're working on there for the second stage that will start in 2024 with the 50% expansion in the plant, which is already included in the original plan, with a few additional parts that will be included next year and will enable this increase from 800 tons to 1,200 tons, our processing capacity here in the state, which will add up to 2.5 million tons a year in terms of processing. So this is our growth track, in essence, which will provide significant growth in soybean processing once we consolidate our operations here in Mato Grosso after the first cycle in the state and the consolidation of our plants in the state of Rio Grande do Sul. Of course, this will also reflect in biodiesel and meal as well. So as the number of, or the volume of products that we produce increases, our sales will increase as well. Also, setting apart part of the oil produced to biodiesel, with part of the share in the mixture increasing starting next year. So we are ready to work in these respects. This is a path that's already established, it's already open in terms of input sales, number of stores, and the coverage area when it comes to grain work, both origination and sales with the three main products we work with: soybean, corn, and biodiesel. And on the manufacturing side, not only the expansion in Vera, but also the other aspects of the work which will take us to a new level. Now, what's our long-term view? What are we seeing in addition to this short-term work, or the next 2.5 years until the end of 2025, which, as I said, includes very significant work that's already been secured? I think that in this sense, the confidence that as early as 2024, we will move to 4 tons a day in crushing and processing on soybean here in the state of Mato Grosso. And only our second year in operation is already very exciting. And it makes us very optimistic about the work that we're doing. Now, what I'd like to share with you is 163 million tons of soybean produced in Brazil versus 114 in the United States, 48 in Argentina, and 20 in China. So these are the 4 leading players in the market, China being an importer of over 100 million tons. Brazil exports over 93 tons, which have already been purchased, meaning Brazil supplies China alone. In addition to that, we are already the second largest corn exporter, soon to become, or soon to take first place, and soon to have the largest cattle herd to consume that product. When we look at the logistics aspect that was mentioned before, I remember telling many of you about the excitement we have at 3tentos and the confidence that we have when it comes to adding value to our product in deep countryside Brazil, taking it to consumer markets, whether that's in the country or overseas, with a lot of added value here from our production. So we know of Brazil's leading role in worldwide agriculture and in the demand for food and renewable energy. There are 2 banners that we set in the country. The first one in Rio Grande do Sul and now in Mato Grosso. This is our addressable market when it comes to grain and inputs. We're talking about 400 billion reais. This is the market we find ourselves in, working and analyzing and also prospecting as we speak. If we were to put all 10 major producers in Brazil or 10 major farmers in Brazil side by side, what we'll see is that this is an increasingly growing market. And 3tentos are offering inputs, grains, and financial products, as our team explained really well here. And I'd like to mention all of 3tentos' partners, our 2,100 associates. I'd like to mention our managing partner who works really well in financial products and internal controls as well. 3tentos has a very strong foundation that enables all of this to take place. A foundation made up of very passionate associates and partners. This is a team that delivers it very well. Tomorrow we will see our manufacturing team, which is a very committed team. Starting next year, in addition to one of the greatest distributors and resellers of ag inputs, 3tentos will be also one of the main crushers in the market. And we are one of the main crushers. We did turn our soybean into husk and oil and meal. We have done a lot, and there's still a lot to be done. And we have to show farmers that we are paying attention to genetic improvements. We are paying attention to technology. We are delivering value across the entire value chain. And we are acutely aware of how to operate in a market. And that we can do that via products, operational excellence, and closeness to our client. In 3tentos' case, we focus on operational excellence and closeness to the client. And the product for us is about the client's success. And from a long-term value perspective, we are looking far ahead. This team we have here, made up of very young people, gives us the perspective of a 100-years-old company. We expect to see a much, much bigger 3tentos and even more efficient than it is today, because we'll be sharply focused on our client farmers. And I think it's important for us to show this figure, which has been shared very recently during UNDAV's conference, and this is the prospect for Brazil's production in the next 10 years, moving from about 300 tons, which is just under what we produce, to something over 640 tons. So this is the market we'll be operating in. This is a market working with Brazil's average CAGR in the recent years. We're working with a CAGR of nearly 6% a year. And when put in practice, this CAGR will take us to over 640 tons, being the largest producer a year. Of course, today the United States produces just over 600, and China just under that, so they'll be growing as well, but not as intensely as we are. So what our message here is, this is a growing market, and this is the market 3tentos is operating in. This is where we'll derive value. So Brazilian agribusiness enjoys this growth and opportunity potential, which is immense. And you know that even better than I do. So this is the context 3tentos is working from, and is eyeing this target that we'll be working moving forward, that we're already working toward. Before, we were talking even about the state of Mato Grosso, where we're growing over 5% a year, have been for some years. So this is what China, the level at which China was growing at its peak. That's the kind of prospect we're working on when we think about our business. And this is the type of optimism that drives us and that will continue to drive us in our day-to-day work. Yeah, when we look at that level of growth, João Marcelo, we see that this includes crop protection, this includes grain, and the entire work in food production that we know has a growing demand. We know that food habits are changing, and we know the products we're working with. All of that in tandem with an energy transition we are paying very close attention to. We know that renewable energy will continue to play a role in this transition for decades to come. And Brazil has all the potential in the world. Our fields are not oil fields. You will see that by November, it will all be green and we'll be harvesting by February. And this is renewable, whether we're talking about biodiesel or ethanol or any other way to bring energy using biomass and renewable fuels. Now, what are the paths for growth at 3tentos that we're seeing? Well, first of all, you must understand that we believe in our ecosystem, as we like to repeat, which is based on growing via input sales, the work on grain, and a manufacturing operation that brings it all together. So we do believe our model, and I think that what we're building here makes us even more confident in the execution of our plan and in the momentum that the plan ends up acquiring. And that's the path through which we'll be growing. So we're concerned about taking more space based on the model that has been proving accurate and effective as we believed it to be from the get-go. Yeah, this is something that we've discussed thoroughly, as was said here before. We are not going to go about filling spaces and flailing about. We will continue to do things with a sharp focus. And we like to remind you that our CAGR for the last 3 years has been 29-30. So this is a sharply focused team that has been able to deliver that level of growth, and we've been delivering it end to end. So we know the field, how the field works, and we know where 3tentos will be better able to grow. Yeah, and never forgetting the technological increase that we've seen. We are understanding technology and how best we can support our farmers in gaining new markets, new products that we're launching and new services, as well as new solutions that will allow us to gain even more momentum, much like 3tentos Cap. We have our entire digital arm. As we heard, 10% of our fixing already takes place online. And when we think about it, we've grown 21 units on the brick and mortar side, and we also have 6 online units when thinking about grain alone. So that type of combination going forward, but with our feet steadily on the ground, we will have many other opportunities, and that's how we plan to move forward. And lastly, we also want to develop new business opportunities. So we have existing business and new business. Obviously, looking at businesses that will complement what we already do. Now, in closing, before we open the floor for questions, I'd just like to underscore a few points that I feel are really, really important here. First of all, 3tentos has been built or is built by people. And this is not being a demagogue. We do believe our team. This is a team that gives it all. When we look at 3tentos' distinguishing factors and what's our driving engine, I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt, that's our team. That's the people working with us. It's about the drive and the passion that we mentioned today toward the work that we do here at 3tentos. We will continue to be a growth-driven and innovation-driven company. So you who believe us and who partner with us, our clients, everyone involved, these people who are part of our team and believe us today, there are these two avenues that we'll continue to follow. We will continue to be a growth-driven company, obviously seeking to grow in a consistent and solid way, and also a results-driven company. So a very strong and powerful company with people that will definitely take us to even higher places and even stronger places in agribusiness. Yes, our people management department at 3tentos, with this entire team where one pushes the other forward within this model. And I think it's impossible not to feel how passionate 3tentos' team is, and I can tell you that from every respect. Every 3 months we have the charming initiative where we spend 2 hours with everyone who just joined 3tentos. For 2 hours, they are with us online. We are joined by these people who come along and have come along to stay, and this is the team that will take the company to new levels. Now, I think Alan will join us to mediate our Q&A. Is that correct? Yes, that's right, guys. So we will now have 30 more minutes for questions. Eduardo is here with a microphone, and Tiago has already raised his hand with a question. I'd like to ask the entire executive team to stay close so that they can answer the questions that are being asked. Very nice, everyone. Thank you for having us and for all the presentations. I have two things that I'd like to address. In the first part of the presentation, where we had João and Luis here, you talk about growth in terms of volume for each one of our stores, which was 21% in the state of Mato Grosso. It gives the impression that you are surprised about how well things are doing. We were positively surprised, and I feel like you guys are as well. So I'd like to hear a little bit from you. Why do you feel like this is the case? Are we maturing faster than the 3 years that were expected at first? Do you think the brand is being better received in the new state than you expected? Do you think the competition, lost sight of things? Where are we doing better in terms of coming to the new state, or at least from a sales standpoint? I would really like you guys to sound off on that. And now on the second part, when you guys are talking about growth, considering all the conversations that we've had before, I was expecting you guys to announce a new growth plan. Are there new steps that we can hear about, especially in terms of crushing that you mentioned before? And the question here is, what's still missing for you to announce this new step, not only in terms of new stores, because, since the ones that you've opened are doing so well, why not open more? And if we're crushers, why aren't we crushing corn as well? Those are my questions. Thank you.
Tranquilo. Eu acho que... Tranquilo é ótimo.
Okay.
Eu acho que na primeira pergunta, né, Thiago, assim, eu acho que...
Now, to address your first question, Thiago, I think Eduardo can help me with that, but in any case, we see great traction in this state of Mato Grosso. And of course, this came as a pleasant surprise. We truly believe in this model. We have always done so, but the results are coming faster than expected. And of course, we're going to double down on that. Now, having said that, according to the vision we foresee, it's all about market acceptance. I think the industry was a very important pillar. The way we came into the market was very solid. And I truly believe that the market transitioned in the past year. We see that new stores were sold, some of them were incorporated, and that created some sort of instability in the market. And the moment when we entered the market coincided with that. And the third aspect would be our assertiveness. We attracted good people. Many people asked us if we were going to go for an M&A because we had great cash after the IPO. We have always considered that as an option. We have tapped into some opportunities. We have always considered this possibility, but we have also always been quite sure that we want to M&A with people, with the best professionals, with the most talented professionals. And that's what we've been doing. Good. He said everything I was going to say. You know, the answer to your question encompasses different elements. Of course, the competition, I mean, some of them got lost, if I can say that, and we managed to take opportunity of that, or to take advantage of that, rather. You mentioned the 21% growth. Now, the volume and the revenue is way higher than that. For fertilizers, we get all the way up to 60%. For seeds, the number is roughly 43%. And for chemicals, which has a different dynamics, because sometimes when the product changes, the way we measure that in kilograms or liters, it's quite hard to follow, but we also assess the acreage treated, and that has also grown. This is also connected to our firm, steady growth in our mature stores, and the new stores are delivering above expectations. They've been contributing to these important volumes. You know, as a sales director, it's a pity that input prices have decreased. Otherwise, our revenue would have been way higher. And I think we would be celebrating even more. I was talking to Nathan and Mateus about the first question you asked. 3tentos goes to different municipalities, in Rio Grande do Sul and in Mato Grosso, and we work hard. We really deep dive into the work we have to do. The team we have in Mato Grosso is local from the state. These people are locals. And they're working in this 7 facilities along with the Vera team, which brings about great consistency at 3tentos in this area where we are acting. That is what brings about our consistency, and that may help us explain why we are also positively surprised by the way farmers welcomed us. But of course, we're competitive, we've got operational excellence, we're in close touch with our customers, we can thoroughly identify what they need, we can cater to these needs, and of course, we also want to surprise them positively, and this is what we've been doing. This is what we've been achieving. Well, as to your second question with regards to growth,
como a gente disse, foi o nosso crescimento contratado.
We showed you
Então, obviamente,
the numbers.
turbinado pela ampliação aqui de Vera, mas que era
They've been boosted
contrato
by
já
the
existente
expansion we
desde
had
a
in
questão
Vera,
do
but
IPO e
there
a
was an
própria
existing
concepção
agreement
da indústria já foi com essa
since the
previsão
IPO,
e com essa
and the industry
com essa
was
preparação
created
já
with this
consolidada.
preparation in
O
mind.
que eu acho que a gente trouxe
This had been
consistente é que
consolidated
nós
before.
acreditamos nesse nosso modelo, que é
Now,
replicar
we truly
as novas
believe in
regiões,
this model. We want to
o mesmo
replicate
modelo
this model to new
e
regions.
fazer uma espinha dorsal mediante a
And
indústria. Essa
we want to
indústria,
make
então,
sure this
pode
is our
crescer
backbone
com a
in the
indústria
industry.
de etanol, né?
It can
Em
be
função do
an
próprio
ethanol
questão do
plant
milho, um produto que a gente trabalha,
because of
né,
corn.
já como originação e como
We got corn
comercialização,
origination,
né?
and
E
we
é
also sell
importante na
corn.
composição do barco.
So corn is
E
very
ela
important.
pode, né, obviamente, estar ligada num
And of
centro
course,
de região diferente.
this can
Nós
all be
estamos
connected to a
com
new region. That is a possibility.
trabalhos, estudos técnicos, planejamento
We got
em
technical
andamento,
research in
só que hoje
place.
já não tem nada consolidado
Studies are
pra,
ongoing,
digamos
but
assim, a
we do
gente
not
ter
have
ou
anything
não
set in
vou
stone.
ainda
We still don't
sentido.
know
Mas sem
if
dúvida
we're
que
going
o
to
que a gente
go
afirma é que o nosso modelo
for
de
that
crescimento vai
or
ser
not.
modelo de
What we can
replicação
tell you
do
is that
ecossistema.
our growth
E essa
model will be
replicação do
basically to
ecossistema,
replicate
ela
the
vai
existing
levar ao crushing,
ecosystem.
e esse crush pode ser de
And of course, crushing will be a possibility, and we may or may not crush corn. Now, having said that, you all know that energy transition is a thing, and you know that oils will play a pivotal role in that regard. 3tentos is keeping a close eye to that, and we want to be prepared. Now, the main takeaway message here, and this may come as a surprise, is that 3tentos will always take firm steps moving forward, and we have great steps planned already. Do we have any other question? First and foremost, congratulations on the event. Thank you for sharing so much information with us. I have two questions, one for the short term and one for the long run. Of course, sales is now moving forward. This is a positive sign you're showing to the market. As we recover sales, how will that impact your input sales? Should we expect that for the third or for the fourth quarter, or maybe first quarter next year, considering the whole industry health? Now, for the mid to long term, Luis, question to you. Rio Grande do Sul is recovering their production, so this is a very favorable perspective for you after La Niña. This brings about an additional volume of soybeans. This can be exported, and this would pose a logistics challenge for the state of Rio Grande do Sul, but at the same time, biodiesel has been favorable. Recent discussions show that we can increase the amount of B15 to fuels, but in terms of crushing, this is not that favorable because of the margins we saw in the past weeks. As we see the volume of soybeans increase, this can be exported, this can go for biodiesel, this can be crushed. How can we capture value out of these opportunities? If this volume were to be exported, if you had access to do so, that would bring about an upside to your dynamics too. Can you elaborate on that? Thank you for your question. Maybe Luis Augusto and Ben-Hur can help us with the first question. Thank you. With regards to the input dynamics, over the past weeks, the market gained quite a good traction. On a global level, price-wise, prices have been quite unstable because of the Chinese market that had high production, high stock levels, but now they're stopping their production cycle. And because of that, customers are looking to the Brazilian market. So the situation is more stable And this creates this perception to the farmers that they have to define their position. Same thing happens with fertilizers. The market is quite stable according to international levels. And of course, we should see some gains that will be under pressure because of this shorter logistics timing. But farmers know that from now on, they have to make sure this input gets to their farm. I mean, in 30 days, we should start the planting season in Mato Grosso and in Rio Grande do Sul. So we are ready to support them at a higher pace. So input sales should begin. Now, this delay also generates consistent comebacks. In Mato Grosso, mainly, last year, we had to wait for this comeback sales, and we saw great consequences because of that. Now, as we kickstart the year, and since the market was stuck, I believe we may take advantage of that. Comeback sales happen when they purchase inputs and then they come back for more. Now, if we go back to the chart on cost distribution, lots of comeback sales right there, by the way. Now, going back to your question on sales, along with the market, we expect farmers not to buy faster, but we also don't expect them to stay still. And we're going at a slower pace as compared to the 3 to 5 previous years in Mato Grosso, 20% for soybeans, more than 10% for corn, as compared to average history data is quite low. So we're keeping an eye on that. Corn that was harvested this year, well, there's still 40% of that to be sold. This was an all-time high, of course. They're taking up our logistics infrastructure, but we're looking into that because we want to make sure farmers also think alike so that there is no mismatch between the moment they buy and sell their products. Logistics-wise, we're present in Rio Grande do Sul and Mato Grosso now. And because of our plants, we can better decide when to sell according to margins. At the current moment, Rio Grande do Sul saw some pressure to their margins, and biodiesel should help them recover. So we see positive numbers for September and October, and in Mato Grosso, because of transportation for corn, margins are still preserved. More than 15% out of this 44 million is to be sold yet. So the main destination nowadays are crushers or processing facilities. In terms of logistics, to your last point, our footprint in southern Rio Grande do Sul, we're talking about stores that are not within that scope, are exported, and we're also in that market. Now in Mato Grosso, in the northern region of the state, origination is not going to be converged to this area, and then we can decide and participate in this new market. A recent example of that, of something that is happening now, is soybean origination in Rio Grande do Sul with more than 40% of grains. There was crop failure. Nowadays, soybeans is being originated for exports, not only in Rio Grande do Sul, but also from other states, because Rio Grande do Sul still has some room for exports from a logistics standpoint. So soybeans from Mato Grosso do Sul, from the state of Paraná, and there are other companies in those states as well. Now, this flexibility and the fact that our operations are versatile, this is
Mas,
quite
assim,
helpful.
complementando só, eu acho que é importante, assim,
Let me add something to
a
that.
busca por eficiência logística, sem dúvida,
We're looking
uma avenida,
for
né? Tanto que estava ali nas
logistics
nossas avenidas de criação de
efficiency.
valor, a logística é uma
This is one
delas.
of the
No
paths
Rio
to
Grande do Sul,
create
nós
more
temos
value.
duas plantas com terminal
In Rio Grande
ferroviário,
do Sul, we've
e
got
nós
2
temos mais de 1
plants
milhão de toneladas de
with
armazenagem.
railroads
Então,
and more than 1 million
já
tons
é
of
uma
storage
vantagem
facilities.
que a gente
This
consegue
is
agregar
an
nesses
advantage
tempos
that can be
de
added
margens
on top
menos
of that
atrativas.
in
Além
times when
disso, a
margins
nossa
are not that
originação ela é,
attractive.
em grande medida,
Origination is,
direta do
to a great
produtor,
extent,
que também nos ajuda, e em boa parte
direct
dela
from
feita com
farmers.
insumos.
That
Então,
is also
digamos
helpful,
assim, a
and
gente
part of that
consegue
is
ter uma
done with
posição,
input. So
mas
we can be
a gente não
at a
está
good position,
totalmente confortável. Nós estamos buscando
but we're not
alternativas de
100%
melhorar a
comfortable. We're looking
logística
for
e
alternatives to
melhorar a nossa
improve
competitividade cada
logistics
vez mais
and also to
para
improve
enfrentar o
our
mercado em
competitiveness
alguns momentos
so
ele
that
vai
we can
estar
face the
muito
market.
saudável,
Because at
remunerando muito,
times
em
it
outros
will
mais
be
apertado. Mas
healthy
quando estiver mais apertado,
and at times
a
it will
nossa,
be quite tight.
a nossa
When that
intenção
happens,
e a nossa visão é que
what
ainda
we
a gente está
expect
passo à frente da maioria dos
is to
concorrentes.
be one step ahead of the competition.
Ficou bom assim, não?
Does that answer your
Eu acho
question?
que a visão de médio prazo, longo prazo, né?
Well,
Nós sabemos
the
e
mid
somos
to
realmente
long-term
um
vision
pressure
is
e
that
a gente
we
sabe a importância que
are
nós teremos como
pressures
empresa
and we know how important
no
we
diesel
will be as a
renovável, por
company
exemplo, ele
when it
necessita
comes to
de
renewable diesel.
todos os demais
Renewable diesel takes up oil.
biocombustíveis, nós pensamos
All
em
other
agronegócio, nós
biofuels,
pensamos
HVO,
em SAF, nós pensamos em tudo isso,
SAF,
parte por
all
esse
of that
trabalho básico ou de fundação que a 3tentos faz.
needs the
E aí,
foundational
onde a
work
gente
done
puder,
by
a partir
3tentos.
daí, agregando valor, sempre
Whatever we can
nessa
do to add
arbitragem que o
value
Augusto
on top of
falou,
that,
que é uma característica
we'll do.
desde o ano 1 lá, que a gente botou aqueles 10%
From year
de
one,
grão lá naquele faturamento. Desde esse
when we
momento,
put 10%
nós
of grains
fizemos
in our
isso de
income,
forma genuína,
we have been making these
verdadeira,
decisions
né? Nós não fizemos, nós não
thoroughly.
arriscamos, nós trabalhamos
We do
realmente
not take
de
risks in
forma
this
muito
case.
segura e que isso vai
We
trazer
want
às vezes mais
to be
ou menos resultados, mas vai
on the
continuar
safe
trazendo
side
resultado positivo.
to make sure we still have positive results. May they be a little higher or a little lower.
Minhas perguntas aqui, eu acho que
Hello, thank you for
ponto que
taking my
perguntou,
question.
uma pergunta chata aqui em relação a M&A, a gente sempre falou sobre
I wanted to ask you about M&As.
pessoas, né, não M&A de real estate,
We've always
de
talked
loja
about
e crescer via
M&Aing with people
E a gente
and
tem
not
visto uma
acquiring
dificuldade
new
grande, né,
stores.
no setor de atrair novos talentos,
We've seen
gente
that it's
nova,
been hard to attract new talents in this industry.
tem visto vagas sendo abertas e não sendo
We see that companies have open positions, people do not apply for those. So I wanted to hear from you. I wanted you to touch a bit on human resources. That's very important, especially in Mato Grosso, and especially since you're expanding. One thing that stood out for me, aside from your capacity increase, had to do with your coverage area. It's quite a relevant one. So your coverage area increased and your store and the number of stores didn't. So there's been a change in your strategy, I think. Can you explain that in details? That would be great. Thank you very much, Gabriel.
Well, I think I can start answering your first question. I have to reinforce that our people management department is very well structured at 3tentos. But from a more practical perspective, we have our team here. I looked at Eduardo, but the same can be said about Luis Augusto. Everyone in the team have an input in our attraction or hiring of new talent process. So we are very practical and address this in a very simple way. So much so that simplicity is one of the themes that we value the most at our company. So I can tell you that we are being able to attract people. It is a challenge, as you said, I won't deny that. But people come and join 3tentos with the purpose of growing their career. They don't join 3tentos for that year or for that specific period's commission. They come here precisely so they can land more smoothly and spend a long time here. So the connection with all our teams and all departments at 3tentos has been able to attract and retain people like the ones we see in this room today.
A questão da área de cobertura,
With regard to our coverage area,
nós temos crescimento importante.
I can say that yes, there has been a substantial increase.
A cobertura está consolidada.
Obviously, we can say that coverage has been consolidated, but we now have several stores and several units at the early stages when it comes to market share. And you said it correctly that the number of people working in these units will increase, including here at Sinop and other units. We have been here with Sinop for over 2 years, but we have slowly increasing the number of people on the field, obviously because we have been building momentum. So as one area develops more quickly, you sort of divide the people and then you explore more your people or that area with more people and increase that coverage. We do not have a track record for new stores being open to consolidate that, but we do have a record of increasing our market share per store. So certainly that consultants curve will continue to grow and continue to grow in importance as well, even so that we can continue to grow our volume and grow our sales when it comes to inputs. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for welcoming us into your new house. It's very interesting to be able to see that 3tentos is no longer just a company from Rio Grande do Sul, but rather a national or a nationwide company. And picking up on Daniel said earlier, we talk a lot about attracting people and having our people go more to the field. So I'd like you to talk a little bit more about people retention, especially in the state of Rio Grande do Sul. We are seeing an increasingly larger challenge in that sense. So I would like you to talk a little bit about the rate, your turnover rate in the state of Rio Grande do Sul being so low. I would like you to talk a little bit about the elements that are enabling that to be true. Now, in addition to that, you've mentioned the platform and all the synergies that you are realizing. So I'd like to understand a little bit about the model that you will be adopting in Mato Grosso as compared to Rio Grande do Sul, especially when it comes to your mixtures, and if there's any intention of bringing some of that operations up here, or if that's not an intention at first. Great. Well, when it comes to personnel, if you, Alan or Eduardo, has anything to add. Well, I think that your question about people was more focused on Rio Grande do Sul. We talked a little bit during the break about people retention, and I think that that's very closely connected to the fact that these consultants need to be good sellers, and if their numbers are good, they will secure large revenue for their plans. And I mentioned at the first part of our panel, when 3tentos is part of their lives, they are working on a 3tentos project, but also on their own personal project, which involve their compensation, but also their personal development. I think that our consultants are very successful on both sides. And at least from my perspective, that increases their connection with our people, especially considering the simplicity that was mentioned, and that creates a very strong bond. It's very rare for a consultant that's professionally fulfilled, who has their financial plan on track, and who's confident in their management to break ties. So retaining a team involves retaining your ties, and we mentioned the academy as well. So we've been preparing this team of managers, because the better they're prepared, the better they'll be able to retain their consultants. So I think that part of our success in retention is connected to being able to keep them engaged and delivering better results. Yeah, I just wanted to add, when it comes to people retention and development, our academy, both for managers and consultants, designed by the executive team, involves that culture, you know, taking our people to the field and building their careers. Because one thing that didn't pop up in our HR surveys, even pre-pandemic, is how important well-being for consultants is on their day-to-day lives. And this is in keeping with our growth model that Eduardo mentioned before, which is to always find people on location, you know, in this case, people from Mato Grosso, and help them grow both professionally and to help us grow as a company. Yeah, we are literally at home here, and picking up on that issue, we have literally family days where the families of those who work with us come join us and have a very special day where we really enjoy each other's company. And we're able to show them very clearly our long-term view. We talked more about managers and sales consultants, which are the people on our front lines, but on the backstage, we have even more people who are making our plant produce even better. And tomorrow we'll be able to come here and see all of that. Now, spoiler alert, tomorrow we'll be seeing a plant that's still starting at the latter stages of construction, and I apologize because you'll be seeing some of that tomorrow, but you know how late stages of construction work. But at the same time, we're very proud to have you at this stage on the first day of our 3tentos store here at Sinop. Yeah, we're literally building the plane as mid-flight. Yeah, actually, the fertilizer issue, especially here in Mato Grosso, is very much in line with everything Luis Augusto talked about in regard to the interface that we have throughout the value chain. Of course, we went through a very intense stage in the worldwide chain. So if we look at the three fertile results for last year we sort of took a step back to see how the market would settle. And in Mato Grosso, at this first stage, was really for us to be confident that each and every one of our customers would be supplied in everything that we had offered when it comes to fertilizers. And of course, at the same time, we were waiting to see the best path that we already had outlined so that we could, with the logistics for crushing and for distribution, we would have that for crushing as well. So this is definitely on our radar, but at first we chose to be safe. So we opened a flank, and we talked about this during the break as well. And at times of crisis, you have specific points of access for fertilizers to keep supplying people. But this is definitely an operation that's fractioned because we're consolidating our grain and crushing infrastructures. Guys, because of our online broadcast, we'll keep this as the last question. Well, I wanted to hear a bit more about your CapEx figures and how much the expansion of the Mato Grosso plant adds to the company's CapEx for the next few years. And assuming you'll get to 2026 with the entire plant concluded, how would your CapEx compare to what you've had in the last few years? And going back to the first question that was asked, do you understand that with your current number of stores in Mato Grosso, is this plant enough to supply all of them? And on the other hand, having more stores in Mato Grosso would require more crushing capacity than what you currently have. Thank you. Okay, I'll start with your second question. I think that the success we've seen here has shown us that there's room to grow even more here in the state. We'll probably have more than those 8 stores in the medium term here in the state of Mato Grosso. This is still an outlook, and we will be evaluating that as time goes by. And our manufacturing operations performance is obviously covered by the originally planned origination, and we have a specific potential origination with the structure that has been built. Obviously, all of that considering our market share curve as our operations mature. Now, to your point about our capex and whether this plant might reach 4,000 tons, we project 30 million reais for next year. So that's fully programmed within our financial flow for next year. And I don't have the number here with me in terms of how maintenance or what maintenance will look like for the next year. We probably have that answer already. Yeah, we're working on average with 5% a year from a maintenance standpoint. So the figure is 750 million. And that's the last share of investment on the plan. And 30 to 35% of that in the first few years, less than that, obviously, from our maintenance and sustenance, so to speak, perspective in the plant's best productivity levels. All right, so just to wrap up our online presentation, we'll be closing the link. I'd like to thank everyone who joined us online. We'll just ask all of you here in the room to stay for a little bit longer, just so we have our housekeeping. We'll be talking about the dinner, our...
Pessoal, então, agradecer a presença de vocês aí nesse